Hi guys! Usually when I say that, Harper usually comes walking over. But, okay, so in honor of Oliver's first birthday being tomorrow, a lot of people had asked me to do this last year after he was born. But I don't know, there was so much going on between Cameron and I and just having a newborn baby and a toddler still that I didn't really have the time, and two, just kind of really didn't feel like filming the video. But now that it's literally been a year, I figured I would finally, oh, hello, son. I look extremely pale right now. Oh, there we go. I figured I would, do you guys see that sun? It's like coming in and out, and I get like super pale and glowy. Anyway, I figured I would finally talk about my labor and delivery story with Ollie. Oh gosh, I'm not ready for this. Okay. So I can't really remember when I originally went in, like, I know when I originally started labor for, there she is. I know when I originally started labor for Ollie. But when my contractions actually really started and I started dilating and such, I believe was the beginning of August. That's when the contractions really started, and I was in and out of the hospital quite a bit. And not because I was paranoid or thought every single little contraction was actual labor, but I had really, really strong contractions that were extremely close together, like real labor. And every time I would call my OB, they'd be like, no, you need to get in, you need to come to the hospital, like, because they honestly thought I was in labor. So I would say I really started, signs of labor coming in the beginning of August. And let me remind you guys, Oliver's due date was not until September 15th. So beginning of August, I had quite a little bit over a month before he was even due. So yeah, and I think obviously, with the doctors and nurses checking you for dilation and whatever, that helps your cervix thin out. So I don't think that helped me at all, because it made the contractions so much worse. The beginning of August, they could tell I was thinning out, but I definitely wasn't dilating. So they're like, you know what? No, your cervix is still closed. Baby's not coming out. You're good. It's just your body prepping for labor. Fine, whatever. That was like the first couple visits. Obviously, more towards September, I was extremely uncomfortable. I was going to post some pictures at the end of this video to kind of show you guys how huge I was, but I decided that I'm going to do a pregnancy time lapse for you guys. I'll probably post that tonight or maybe tomorrow on Ollie's actual birthday. But I will do from the time we found out we were pregnant all the way until the time that Oliver was born. So you guys will be able to see just how big I got. And I will leave every single video I ever posted of my pregnancy. I will leave that in the description box down below if you guys are interested in checking it out, in case you guys are new to my channel. So anyway, about September, obviously the contractions started getting a lot worse, and I was obviously already starting to dilate. Dilation had started. This light is really bothering me. All right, that helped a little bit. Sorry, I had to shut my shade. Like, I don't know. Ugh, anyway, so obviously in the beginning of September, the contractions started getting a lot stronger, and I was actually starting to dilate. With Harper, one of my biggest issues was I could not dilate. Like, babe, do you remember what number I was stuck on for the longest time? With Sissy, with my dilation. Wasn't it like 2? Yeah, I was like, for like the last month of Harper, I was like stuck on 2 or 3. Even going in and getting induced for her. If you guys want a whole labor and delivery story for Harper, let me know down below. But with Harper, I was induced because of the diabetes I had, and they were just too afraid that Harper was going to get too big, and it would cause not only health issues for my daughter, but health issues for myself as well. So even with her, like, I was almost a C-section because I just could not dilate. Well, honey bunny. You just want cookies?
Oh, lollipops.
Well, you just had lollipops. Can you let your belly settle for a little while?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, with Ollie, I just couldn't dilate. So I remember Monday, what, honey bunny? Okay. So anyway, I'm trying to remember. Okay, yeah, I remember it. For some reason, it was Labor Day. It was Labor Day because my mom was off. And I remember, I believe it was Labor Day. My mom was off on that Monday, and so was my mother-in-law. So it must have been Labor Day. But anyway, they had brought me to they brought me out walking around the hospital because in front of my hospital, they have a huge, like, place where you can walk, and next to, like, a pond with ducks. And anyway, so they brought me out walking, and my mom brought me up flights of stairs because we knew my due date was coming close. And just like I said, Oliver was showing no signs of wanting to come out. And I was like, this baby needs to come out because I'm extremely uncomfortable. So I stayed with my mom that day. Cameron took Harper home later on, and my mom got me an exercise ball, and I was literally, guys, I was on that thing for hours, just jumping and rolling my hips, and then the contractions started. They were horrible. They were the worst contractions. They hurt so badly. So my mom was like, no, we need to go to the hospital. And my mom took me to the hospital. They looked over me, and the contractions lasted for a good 2 hours, but they weren't close enough. And with me still being over a week from my due date, they were kind of just like, we don't want to induce you right now because if the baby's not showing any signs of coming out, there's no point. So we got sent home from the hospital about 4 hours later, and they were just like, if you're still uncomfortable, the contractions continue, call your OB, go see them, and then if there's any changes, they'll send you over to the hospital. So I remember I took the exercise ball home with me, and literally I tried falling asleep in bed. It was the most uncomfortable thing in the world. So I literally stayed up and sat on the exercise ball all night, and with rolling my hips and just bouncing on it a little bit, the contractions stayed. They were not going away. I actually vlogged myself on the exercise ball. I'll leave that vlog down below. And I'm whispering because Cameron and Harper were both sleeping on each side of me. But I remember telling you guys how much in pain I was. And I was almost in tears because it hurt so badly. So I called my mom about 7:30 in the morning. And my OB didn't open up until 8. My mom's like, let me know what they say. If they say that they want to see you, I'll come get you and Harper. Because Cameron had already gone to work and my in-laws were already at work. So I was like, okay. I called my OB. I told me, I was like, I went to the hospital last night. The contractions haven't stopped. I'm uncomfortable. And they were like, okay, come in. We want to see you. So I got Harper and myself ready. And I remember calling. I either call or texted Cameron. And I was like, headed to the doctors. Don't know what's going on. Just wanted to inform you. Needless to say, let me remind you guys, Cameron works till 3:20 in the afternoon, and he doesn't really get home till 4. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have this baby, and my husband's not even here. Like, this baby's going to come out today, and my husband's not even here. it was the worst experience of my life. My mother-in-law met me at the OB office, and she took Harper for me because we were, no. Harper stayed at the OB appointment with my mother and I. My daughter stayed at the OB with my mother-in-law and I. Until afterwards, I called my mother-in-law at work, and I was like, they're inducing me. When I got to the OB, I was like, it was the quickest thing ever. Like, usually I have to wait a little bit. No. Like, I was in as soon as I got there. And the doctor looked over me, and she goes, you are 5 centimeters dilated. And I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, you're about 5 centimeters, you're like 5 centimeters dilated and 70% effaced. And I was like, are you serious? And she said that they don't consider active labor until you're about 6 centimeters. So I wasn't in active labor yet, but this baby was definitely coming sooner rather than later. And I definitely was not going to make it until the 15th. So she goes, would you like me to strip your membranes for you? And I said, can you? And she said, absolutely. She goes, I would feel better if I actually did it. And I was like, okay, so yeah. So she stripped my membranes right there. And then she goes, I'm sending you over to the hospital. I was like, she goes, because I believe this baby's going to be born within the next couple hours. I was like, oh my gosh. And at that time, you're like, is my diaper bag ready at home? Is my hospital bag ready at home? Oh my God, what if the baby comes out and my husband's not here? And I was just thinking every scenario possible on top of being like, oh my God, I have to go through labor again. So my mother-in-law meets us because my OB is actually in my hospital, which is extremely convenient. It's just on the other side. So she goes, my doctor goes, go over to the emergency room. Tell them, she goes, we'll already have all your paperwork sent over to labor and delivery. They're going to know you're coming. So I got in, my mother-in-law met us over there. She took Harper for the rest of the day because we didn't know how fast my labor for Oliver was gonna go, and we didn't want to have to. I wanted my mother-in-law and my mother to be there because they were there for Harper, and that's what I wanted. So we had it all planned out that hopefully if we could keep Oliver in for a little while, my father-in-law would be home. He could watch Harper. We could get Cameron, my mother-in-law, and my mother all there for me. So my mother-in-law had took Harper, and Cameron finished off his shift because I remember he kept calling me, and we kept in contact, and he kept in contact with my mother, and she's like, nope, she's progressing really slowly. She's doing good. So Cameron didn't find any need to get off work. And if I remember correctly, conveniently enough, he had the next 2 days off. So it worked out really well. I had gone in, and literally, guys, they thought that Oliver was coming, that I had to fill out everything. I filled out the paperwork for his birth certificate, for his newspaper announcement, I filled out, like, every paperwork that I could. They had his little paper ready where they put his fingerprint and his footprint, just everything, because they thought this baby was coming out. They were monitoring me very, very closely. I remember they had given me some pain medication because it was a really odd situation. And I remember my doctor had called it, I don't remember. There was a specific name for what I went through with Ollie. Because basically, looking at me, my body was dilating. I was thinning out, but Oliver just wasn't coming out. And it was a really weird situation because they said with my dryer, with my cervix opening up and thinning out, like they could barely feel Oliver's head. And they thought it was extremely weird. So they put me on pain medication because I was in pain, but the monitor that monitored my contractions wasn't showing my contractions. It was showing them, but it was showing them as like these little ones. But the pain that I was in was so agonizing. So they gave me some pain medication, and they're like, you know what, we'd like to keep you up. We'd like to keep you for the night. But if you don't go into labor, I guarantee you'll be sent home in the morning. Because I remember that night my OB wasn't the actual OB that was in the office, that was in the hospital. So they kind of wanted to wait until the next morning when my OBGYN was there to see what she thought, to get her opinion on whether or not I'm going to have this baby or if I'm going home. So finally Cameron had arrived, and my mother went home just to sleep, and she goes, call me if anything changes. So it was just Cameron and I remember they gave me some pain medication just to get me through the night. But I remember I was just so super uncomfortable. Just wasn't feeling good at all. But I finally got comfortable enough to get some sleep, and about, I want to say 5:30ish, I remember waking up, and of course, being pregnant, I had to pee. So I get up, and I remember just like leaking on the floor a little bit. And I'm like, really weird. I was like, I have said many times throughout my pregnancy with Oliver and throughout my pregnancy with Harper, like, oh my God, my water's breaking, but it wasn't. Like, you're pregnant, you have so much weight on your bladder that it's you peeing and you just don't realize it. So I finished going to the bathroom, and I was just like, this is so weird. And this is the time that's kind of like a little bit of a blur to me. I don't remember if I called the nurse or if the nurse called me, but I remember talking to the nurse, and I was like, no, it was right. This is now I remember. The nurse called me because they had taken me off the fetal heart monitor for the night just so I could sleep comfortably, because those things are a bitch on your belly and they kind of hurt. So I remember the nurse calling me, and she goes, okay, your doctor comes in at 7. We're going to put you back on the fetal heart monitor and track your contractions in the baby and see what's going on, because we're almost positive you're going to get sent home this morning. And I said, okay, that's fine, whatever. So finally, the nurse comes in, and she was getting ready to put me on the fetal heart monitor, and I was like, listen, I got up and went pee this morning. It was probably like 5, almost 5:30 at this point, and I was like, it was around 5:15ish, and I was like, I don't know if I got up and peed on the floor a little bit. I go just a couple dots, a couple drops. I was like, or if my water's starting to break. And she goes, well, I guarantee you that you just peed. And she's like, but we can test it for you if that'll make you feel more comfortable. And I said, yes, please. So they come in, and if you've ever been in this situation before, they literally give you like this big cotton swab, and they swab you. And they put it in this little tubey thing, and it tests to see if it's urine or if it's amniotic fluid. Well, it seemed like forever that the nurse came back in, and finally she comes in. It was about almost 7 at this point. Like, it took that long. I remember waking Cameron up, and I was like, babe, I don't know if I peed or if my water's starting to break, but something's going on. And of course, him and I are like, you probably just peed, but because that was our luck. The nurse comes in about 7, and she looks at me, and she goes, okay, so I have 2 things for you. One's good and one's bad. I was like, oh my God. What? And she said, the good news is it wasn't pee. She goes, your water isn't completely broken yet. She goes, but it's got a tear in it. She goes, that was fluid that you were leaking. And she goes, that's the good news. She goes, the bad news is we have to induce you. And I was like, frick me. Just because I remember the long process for Harper, when they induced me, I was literally induced and in labor for 19 hours, which doesn't seem like a lot. I know some women were in labor a lot longer, but just to have constant pain for 19 hours, and it was a really long, and the scare of possibly having a C-section. So I was like, oh, okay. So they gave me the medication. They started my IV, and I was like, this baby is coming out. Thank God. I'm so excited to meet my son. I cannot wait. That was about 7 o'clock in the morning. Around 7:30, 8 o'clock, my OB finally comes in, and she goes, this baby's coming out, huh? And I said, yup. And she goes, well, I'm going to finish breaking your water. And I said, okay, fine. I knew what that felt like. I had my water broken for Harper. So she broke my water, and it's like the weirdest feeling in the world. If you've never had your water broken, it literally is the strangest feeling in the world. You literally feel like you peed yourself, just like the biggest pee you've ever taken, and it's warm. Like, it's so warm. So it started off wicked slow. The contractions were unbearable. These were the worst contractions I've ever had in my entire life. They were worse than any contraction I ever had for Harper. It literally just felt like someone was stabbing me repeatedly. It just would not stop. I got so uncomfortable. With both my kids, I had extremely bad back labor. And I was just like, you can't lay down. You just can't, because you just want to get out of that bed and you just want to move. I did not I was unable to get a epidural for Ollie because of the pain medication they had put me on the day before to stop my contractions. And by the time I wanted my epidural, it was actually way too late and far into my labor to get an epidural. But they did give me a spinal block. A spinal block? I think that's what it is. A cervical block? No, they gave me a cervical block. That's what it is. They gave me a cervical block. And that thing did nothing. It did nothing for me. They only gave me a little bit of it, but it did nothing for me. I felt every single contraction. And I want to say in a way I gave up repeatedly. And I kept saying, oh my gosh, I want a C-section. I want a C-section. Give me a C-section because the pain was just so unbearable. And I felt like such a wuss. I felt like, why can't I push this baby out? And not like any of my family or the doctor was making me feel that way, because they weren't. I mean, I know now why it was hard for me to push Ollie out, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But, so when the contractions truly started, they were like, you're dilated, like you're there, you need to push this baby out. But we were still having problems. Oliver was very tight to my right side, and that's why they really couldn't feel his head, because even at 10 centimeters dilated, they were still having problems feeling him. And they're like, you know, push, we'll guide him. Like my doctor was the best. She was trying so hard to get me to push this baby out. And I literally, guys, I tried everything. I just did not want to get on the bed anymore. Or be on the bed anymore. And the strangest thing is my doctor actually put me on the toilet, which sounds so freaking weird. But to this day, if your doctor puts you on the toilet when you're trying to push out a baby, I strongly recommend just listening to your doctor, because it did help me out a little bit. I believe it guided Ollie to kind of center himself a little bit to come out. But I was literally sitting on the toilet. Like my doctor's hands were practically in this toilet ready to catch my son if he came out. And then finally I was just like, nope, I gotta get off the toilet. It was uncomfortable. And I said, I want to get back in bed. And she goes, well, we have a stool. Or I don't remember if it's like a stool. She goes, it kind of resembles a toilet that you can do and like lean half of your body on the bed and squat on the stool. And she goes, it resembles a toilet, but that way you'll be a little bit more comfortable on your upper half to deliver the baby. And I said, okay. We got over to the bed, and my contractions were so strong at this point that I just said, fuck the stool. I wanted nothing to do with it. I was like, no, I'm getting back on that bed. So I laid back down on the bed, and at this point, they admitted to me now. They didn't admit to me until after Oliver came out that they lied to me. My doctor, my mom, and my mother-in-law kept telling me, oh, Chelsea, we see his head, we see his head. In all actuality, they did not see his head, but that gave me a little push to push this baby out. They didn't see his head. But once they kept telling me that, I was like, oh my God, my baby's right there. My son's right there. I'm going to get this baby out. And I pushed and screamed and pushed and screamed. And finally, my baby finally came out. I didn't push that long. I don't remember the exact time. But finally, at 1:27 p.m. on Wednesday, September 9th, Ollie was born. And I just remember the hugest sigh of relief when that baby came out. They brought him over to the little incubator, and Oliver, from what I recall, Oliver screamed the second he came out, didn't he? What? Do you remember if Oliver screamed the second he came out, didn't he? No, yes, Harper screamed. That's right. I was getting to some of that, but okay. That's right. Oliver did not scream when he first came out, and obviously you try not to worry too much, but so I remember, obviously, the grandma's running over to him right away. And Cameron stayed with me. I think Cameron was kind of just like, felt better if he stayed close to me. And I do kind of remember, I feel like after both I give birth, like you just are on this adrenaline rush. And I remember looking over, and I couldn't see Ollie. I saw the incubator. I saw the nurses. I saw my mom. I saw Cameron's mom. And all I saw were tears and crying on my mom and Cameron's mom. And I didn't remember for sure if it was because I was thinking they're happy to see that their grandson's here and they're... Okay, baby, go potty. Yes, you can. Honey, can you help Harper? And I remember just, like I said, automatically assuming that... Okay. That's the reason that they were crying, was because they were just really happy to see that Ollie was finally here. But Ollie had come out not breathing. And it took him a good couple minutes to start crying. So my mother-in-law didn't tell me until afterwards, until way after we brought Ollie home. And we were talking about labor and delivery. She goes, your mom and I thought Oliver was dead. I didn't know what was going on. Like I said, my adrenaline rush at that point was so, oh my gosh. And then I was thinking about my son, and then I was still thinking about Harper because I hated being away from Harper. And finally, seriously, guys, it seemed like it was years. Oliver, like, let out the biggest freaking scream. And I had never been so relieved and so in love with a scream in my entire life. And finally, you could kind of just see, like I was looking over at my mom and Cameron's mom, you could just see just the grandmas just finally being like, oh my God, he's good. But it was definitely a very, very, very scary moment. And even when I do my time lapse, you guys will see Ollie came out. He was a bigger baby, but he came out with a completely black and blue face. It seriously looks like someone beat the crap out of him.
Mommy, I pooped on pee-pee.
Did she poop, baby?
In the bingo potty.
Good job. High five me, girl.
And that's so mean. Papa pee-pee and poop on the potty.
Yeah, good job.
Guys, pee-pee and poop on the potty.
What did you do?
Pee-pee and poop on the potty.
Good job.
Thank you, guys.
But yeah, like I said, that was definitely a scary moment, thinking that why the hell was my son not breathing? And then I didn't know until they finally let me hold him that Oliver, like I said, Oliver's face, the rest of his body was fine. It was a little black and blue, but his entire face was black and blue. And it was because he was so hugged up to my right side. I felt horrible. I felt like, because it was because of my diabetes, and for the longest time, I did blame that on myself. I was like, oh my gosh, I should have ate healthier, and I should have done this and this and this and this. One of those things that you can't prevent. I could have ate the healthiest in the world, but you guys know I have sugar problems outside of pregnancy. It just gets worse with pregnancy. So it was inevitable. It was going to happen. Especially with how much Ollie weighed. Oliver was a 9-pound, 10-ounce baby. So he was a bigger baby. I was just extremely blessed to hear that cry. Like, the black and blue will go away, but I was extremely blessed to just hear that scream and just be, thank God my son is here. and I was beyond words, just in love. And that's all. I didn't care. Like, as he was healthy, he had some sugar problems for his first 24 hours, I believe. They thoroughly watched him for a couple times. It was relatively high, but after that, it went down, and he's had no problems since then. But yeah, that's how everything went after 2 days of staying at the hospital. I gave birth. Well, technically, I was in there on Tuesday. We went home on a Friday because he was born Wednesday. So that was it, guys. That was my labor and delivery story. You guys have all wanted to hear it, and you guys are so interested. And I thought it'd be kind of a cool thing to do the day before my baby boy turns 1 year old. So yeah, if you guys want to hear Harper's labor and delivery story, let me know down below. I'll be happy to do it for you guys. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.